Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Minecraft Memories, a show that's a little bit about Minecraft, a little bit about memories. Last time I talked a little bit about sadder things, so let's move back to the happier topics. I know that the world can be sad and it can be happy, and that equal measures of both makes a healthy... Ooh, that's no good. Equal measures of both is important for a healthy outlook, but it's also important to remember that your outlook helps shape whether or not something's good or bad. I'm not going to focus wholly on the good here. I'm not going to focus wholly on the bad. You know, it's a little bit of each in the world. I was thinking the other day, by which I mean earlier this afternoon, about Boy Scouts. I'm not going to join the Boy Scouts. I'm a little bit past my prime. However, I was a member, sort of. The first thing I remember regarding Cub Scouts, for indeed, I did start off as a lowly Cub Scout. Oh yeah, like this, was I was kind of surprised by it. My parents came into the room, this was when we were living in a trailer, very small, and it was after school at some point, and they had a uniform for me. And they said, "Kyle, you're joining the Cub Scouts." "Great, when do I go?" "You're going tonight." Okay. At that age, you know, it's not like I had plans or anything, but it was still kind of sprung on me. Not that that's a bad thing. I thoroughly enjoyed the Cub Scouts. My parents took a picture of me standing in front of a wall, and they had it dated. I believe it was 96? I'm going to say 96 because 96 seems like one of those years that a lot of things happen. So we'll go with that, 96. And they took the photo and drove me up to the elementary school. And we had a little meeting in the cafeteria. I don't remember much about the meeting. I'm sure the first night there was just orientation. They tell you, "Hey, welcome to the Cub Scouts. This is what you need. This is what you do." A lot of my friends, I think, were already in it for a while, and I was joining a bit late. But I can't be for sure on that. I do know my friends were in there, and I had my BFF was there. Is that? Yeah, that is. Oh, dang it, Bobby. That's okay, we can get creative in this room. Ooh, how creative. You know what? We can do something like this. Sorry, Rose, you'll get a new room. My BFF was in Cub Scouts. My friend Eric was in Cub Scouts. They would later stop being in Cub Scouts, but for the initial first time there, they were members, and let's put a little secret down here. You know, we got to hang out together after school, and that was a lot of fun. Cub Scouts was pretty enjoyable. In my mind, it was a lot like arts and crafts mixed with survivalism, and my dad's always had a very healthy focus on survivalism. Not that that's a bad thing. It's actually really good, because you never know what the world's going to do, and it's always best to be prepared. We did those soapbox derby cars, not the actual official ones that you get inside and you go down a hill, but the little miniature models that you fashion out of a block of wood. And then you put tires on, and the parents who have dads with connections, because this was before the internet, mind you, the dads could look up online how to make the cars go way faster than they should without violating legal limits. My dad did not have the connections. I don't think we ever won one of those, but I had a lot of fun, and I think that's what's important, because it was a lot of, you know, it was enjoyable. You get to race it down the track, and you hope you win. You don't, but or maybe some of you did. Another aspect, yeah, let's do that. Another aspect of Cub Scouts that I remembered were the day camps. We went to a camp, or there's a camp near our house called Camp Roy C. Manchester. I guess I don't have to explain who that was. Everyone knows the famous Camp Roy C. Manchester. I don't know who he is. I think he was a local guy. But This can be sacred. This chest is sacred. And it's just, it's not at all me trying to get rid of inventory space. Camp Roy C. Manchester is a little day camp that's situated near the lake, as most things near us are. And it has a lot of day facilities. The first experience I've ever had with it was Mom visited it, and I went with her, and we were actually spending the night. It was a lovely time. We, a little secret book. We went there. First, I remember we got bubble gum. I got the Hubba Bubba gum, and that was a lot of fun to just shove in your mouth like it was going out of business. And then you'd have a tough time chewing it, but man, you would have a huge bubble. I got a lot of that. And then I went to camp. And then Mom had, like, I think an hour in orientation where they said, hey, you're going to set up the camps here. Breakfast will be served at this time. Welcome to Cub Scouts, I guess. I remember a couple of older kids there during the orientation. I said, are you spending the night? And they said, no, we're not spending the night. And I felt so sorry for them, because here they were missing out on a grand adventure. Meanwhile, I got to enjoy this adventure. I got to spend the night in a tent and camp out. I remember walking through the woods, actually, after most of the people had left and only the campers remained. And I was with I guess it was a Cub Scout leader, some guy, and he said, remember, be careful, because any stick could be a snake. And I remember adding, because I was in elementary school, and it just made perfectly logical sense to me at the time, yeah, and if it's a two-headed stick, it could be a two-headed snake. That's right, Kyle, sure. Absolutely. You go on believing that, bucko. And I did. I believed it for a little while that, you know, you could see a two-headed snake. And two-headed snakes do exist, but they're so rare that if you got bit by one, even if it was poisonous, you could just capture it, and the price you would get from selling it would probably pay for the hospital bill several times over, especially since anti-venom isn't too terribly expensive. So I felt sorry for these kids, but we camped out. We woke up the next morning early, because that's what you do when you go camping. I'm not convinced anyone's ever gotten a good night's sleep camping. My friend David says he loves it. I love camping too. I still do. But he says he gets a good night's sleep, and I'm just going to call shenanigans on that. There's no way anybody gets a good night's sleep while camping. It's a little interesting structure. We'll leave that be for now. But then actually a couple years later, we went back to the same campsite it was another orientation. And it was so weird, because another kid asked me, hey, are you camping out? And we weren't camping out this time. No, we're not camping out. And I could tell he felt so sorry for me that I was missing out on this grand adventure. Little did he know that I'd already had the adventure. He was merely coming into my footsteps. And, you know, that was kind of a realization of the nature of adventures and how each one's individual. You're never going to get the same adventure twice. If you visit some place that you really love, a good example of this would be Sand Dunes National Park. Beautiful place, beautiful sand dunes. Good luck climbing the hill. There's no oxygen in Colorado. Why do you think they legalized marijuana? They had to find something to put in the air since there wasn't oxygen. We went climbing there the first time. I had an absolute blast. Well, no, I take that back. The first time I went with a school trip. I got completely sick, coughed my head off, feverish, got everyone else on the trip sick. Miserable time. But it was still an adventure. It's an inarguable adventure. I'm glad I didn't get to recreate that adventure. The second time I engaged in certain substances that may or may not be legal elsewhere in the country, and then we spent the night. And alright, you know what? I take it back. I slept really well that night. Maybe that's David's secret. Here I am contradicting myself within the same episode. That's okay. Back to the Cub Scout story, though. Yeah, he said he felt so sorry for me, and you know, I kind of wished I had spent the night again. but that's okay. It was time for someone else, and I had plans for that night. I think. I don't know what did you do? What did people do before the internet? I think I watched TV. That sounds about right. I can't really see Manchester though. More than just camping out there overnight, had a lot of what? This is a new one. Let's build some. No, let's forget the caves for a second. Let's build some external structures. I'm thinking right there. Oh hey llama. Osama ya llama. Camp Royce, Manchester also is a day camp, and during the summer, as I mentioned earlier, we had Vacation Bible School. Well, during another part of the summer, we had Vacation Cub Scout School. He agrees. And it was a day camp where you got to go and do Boy Scout things. We did archery, we did canoeing, swimming, we did arts and crafts, you got a lunch, rifle shooting, and I'm trying to think. I really loved the swimming activities, any of them that involved water. I remember canoeing during one of these events, and these big metal canoes sitting in the hot summer sun were, they expected you to take one out onto the water and, quote, enjoy, unquote, it. How are you supposed to enjoy sitting inside of an oven as your skin bakes off of your bones because this summer sun has been beating down on this all day? I saw a couple of other canoers who were bad at canoeing had fallen in. My canoe partner, I don't remember him very much. He was good at canoeing, and he wanted to be seen as good, whereas I wanted to be seen as still having skin. So I kind of pretended that, whoa, I'm getting a little unstable, and I tried tipping us over, but he righted it. So then I had just forget this and jumped in, and then did the swim of shame. And no one else realizing that the swim of shame included nice refreshing nice refreshing dip in the lake. So their loss. Another time, this was when we were younger, the canoe there was 5th grade, because you had to be in 5th grade in order, no, 4th or 5th grade. You had to be in Webelos. What was the order ranking? Bobcat, Wolf, Tornado, Webelos, something like that. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. There was another one in there, but Webelos was the right before you graduated and went on to actual Boy Scouts. Until you did that, you were still in Cub Scouts. And 4th and 5th graders were the ones that did the canoe. I think it was in 3rd grade when I got in trouble for food fighting. We were in the cafeteria. These two twins, they were twins. Twins, Basil, twins. I'm actually contractually obligated to make an Austin Powers joke at least 2 times a day. I'm very, very sorry that you had to hear one of them. These twins were, I'm going to say they were troublemakers, but they weren't really. They were kind of like me. They were just looking for fun, and sometimes their idea of fun was wasn't exactly smiled upon in the greater society. And we had a food fight, and I don't know, we were just like throwing banana peels, and we had to clean up the cafeteria afterwards. They said, well, if you can make the mess, you can clean it up. So the 3 of us were stuck cleaning. I was a little bummed out about that. I think I had to miss archery or something, which is completely fine. I enjoy archery. That's a story for another time. Regarding archery, my best friend and I, Diablo 2 days, swords, bows, and arrows. But that's another time. That's a middle school tier, and we're still in elementary school. During this time, Mom didn't mention it to me. The only reason I knew about it was because I found a journal that she had written dating to this time. Was suffering from some heavy depression. It runs in the family on her side a little bit. And I found the journal, and it said, it was filled with a lot of hopelessness, and I brought it up to her later, and I said, hey Mom, I found this. And she's like, oh, I was just writing a story. I'm like, no you weren't. She's like, yeah, I know, but I'm feeling much better now. Which, you know, that's awesome. she volunteered there, and that was a little weird. I think I was worried that she would find out about the food fight thing, but I don't think she ever did. I don't think the people thought to tell her or even cared. They just didn't want to have to be the one to clean up the mess. It wasn't really much punishment so much as it was a task they didn't want to have to do, so they made us do it, which is completely fine and reasonable. Arts and crafts was a really fun one there. Got a couple of little stories about that. One of the arts and crafts, one of them was if you brought in an RC car, you could take off the chassis, the exterior bit, and they would modify it and make it look like a robot, which, you know, might sound cool if you're little, but I think even by that point I'd already started building robots in my spare time, and I was like, oh, that's it? Okay. I didn't have an RV or RC car because we were, as mentioned, not too well off. And, well, I did have an RC car, but I wasn't going to bring it in to be butchered by the an arts and crafts center. We did, another one I remember was we were decorating paper bags for some reason. I can't remember why, but I think we were putting something in, I don't know. Either way, a lot of people in my fellow classmates started putting this really cool symbol on their bag. I didn't put it on because I didn't know what it meant. And I was like, well, whatever, I don't know. That really cool symbol, it turns out, or they learned, is called a swastika. A swastika. And once the instructors explained to them what the swastika represented, I think a lot of them tried to alter it. They took the, make a swastika here real quick. Welcome to Minecraft, I'm building a swastika. No, but I'll build one leg of it. So imagine that, but like more of it. I think they tried to make it like little windows. Done a very bad job, but they tried to close it off and make it like little windows boxes. Alright, fair enough, good save. And that, people, is why you don't draw symbols that you don't know what they mean, because maybe they look cool, but maybe they represent a political ideology that led to the deaths of millions of people. Whoops. I do remember that at the, when we were diving off the docks there, though, there was a snake once, and we weren't allowed to go into the water, which was a real bummer, because I love swimming. Especially when it's as hot as it is, and you're in the woods, and there's no air getting and circulating through. The woods, I don't know, if you've never been to the woods in the summertime, it's like an envelope. It's like being inside your car in the summertime. It's the greenhouse effect. Quite literally, you're stuck inside of the greenery, and it's keeping this from escaping. Oh man, it's not a nightmare, but it's not fun. You wouldn't want to do it willingly. I did eventually wind up graduating Cub Scouts. Moved on from Webelos to Webelos 2. I did, I think, a bunch of knots. We had to tie knots. Oh, I do remember we did soap sculpture carvings during these classes also. I've completely forgotten about that. But yeah, we did soap sculpture carvings, and we also did, what else? Those knots. And some kids spent the night there, but I didn't because, I'm going to be honest, I used to have trouble wetting the bed when I was younger. Keep that under your hat. It kept me from going to a lot of spend-the-night type camps, and it persisted well into middle school. I don't know why. Maybe I was just a sound sleeper. I don't do it anymore. If you do it, I will say that it won't last forever. I understand, though, it is embarrassing, and, you know, it's, especially peers, they can be ruthless, but I did, which is weird because when I was in elementary school and middle school, I would sometimes spend the night over my BFF's house, and I never wet the bed over there. Except, you know what? Except one time. I'm glad he doesn't know that I have these, because he might know about this, and I guess if he found out, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I peed on your stuff. What are you gonna do about it? Um, I always slept on the floor because he had a very tiny room. I would always sleep in his room, and I wet the bed once, and I got on this blanket. So I, like, in the middle of the night, I snuck and threw it in the washing machine, and just like, or what did I do with it? I did something with it where it wouldn't be found, and then I got like some more blankets. And he never said anything. His mom maybe knew. I'm sure his mom and my mom spoke, and she's like, listen, my son has a problem, this is the problem. And his mom probably like, oh, I understand. His mom was really cool. She lives right next to him, which I think is important. At least I find it important, family, being close to them. Because family and friends, man, if you've got good ones, then Dorothy had it right. There's no need to go outside of Kansas. Even though Kansas is kind of terrible. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Kansas, actually, the first time I went through Kansas, I hated it. I found it to be boring flat land. That was absolutely miserable, and there was nothing around. And then the second time I went through it, I realized that this was an incredibly open area that was completely vacuous, and you just had so much space to move around. And I understand that both of those things are identical, except the perception of them. And that goes back to what I was saying. The perception of things can change your outlook on it. What is making that noise? Zombie, shut up! Your perception of things can change your outlook extraordinarily, to the point where Kansas can either become this horrible wasteland or just a beautiful open area prairie. And it is. I don't know exactly what parks are open in Kansas. I do know there are no national parks, but I do know they have wildlife, like protected prairie areas. And oh my god, if you ever get the chance to drive through there, if you get the chance to spend the night, bring a telescope. It's a gorgeous endeavor, and I think that everyone should see it. This has been the 2 minutes of Kansas praise. I actually get paid from the Kansas government to pimp their state. They go and find all the biggest YouTubers. Ladies. Man, when we were, I'm going to save that story for another time, the friend spending the night, but I will finish up with the Boy Scouts and say that after I graduated Cub Scouts, I stuck with Boy Scouts for maybe 2 or 3 months. Mom wasn't too happy with it because it required driving me to, how far can we go? Driving me about 15 to 20 minutes away, so it was no longer this close, convenient thing. But you only had to do it like once every 2 weeks. Fine, whatever. Okay, not too far. I can dig that. I didn't like it because it was boring. The room that we met in was just a big, wide open. I think it was a basketball court normally that a church owned, but there's like just nothing. You couldn't play basketball, and you just sat around and they talked about. When we graduated Cub Scouts, they said Cub Scouts is a little bit of work and a lot of fun. Boy Scouts is a lot of work and a little fun. Great job, guys, you're selling me already. And it wasn't that much fun. I didn't get much enjoyment of it. The trips they planned were well out of our financial bracket at the time, and they didn't even sound that much fun anyway. Honestly, a lot of what they talked about I can do by myself now, and I don't have to stick with a group. Like, I love hiking. I do remember we had a ceremony where we got these little pins. I guess somebody like analyzed each of us, went down the checklist. Kyle, okay, he's good at tying knots, he's good at carving out soap, he can do swimming, he can do etc, etc. Wonderful. And it was the ceremony. We quit shortly after, but the legacy didn't die with it. After we had quit, there was actually a little bit of, oh hey, whoa, you can be a citizen, that's fine. A little bit of a sidestep here. There's an episode of Ed, Edd n Eddy where Rolf starts the Urban Explorers, I think they called them. They called themselves. Essentially a Boy Scouts, but with an urban flair. Well, We didn't have that, but I did start something similar for my sisters, where I kind of taught them a little bit about, you know, just like survival and snakes and stuff. And for a while there, it was actually really cool. And I actually would use make them little badges out of cardboard and markers, and gave them little cases to collect, you know, kind of like Pokemon badges. I actually ended that myself because I realized that I was using it to have them do things for me that I didn't want to do. Like, I think the straw that broke the camel's back on that was, I told one of them to get me the rope swing, and it was like a loyalty badge or something. It was, and I was like, yeah, it's jumped the shark. They weren't happy that I ended it, but I figured it was for the best because I didn't want to see it de-escalate any further. And I mean, living where we do, they pretty much already have all this stuff figured out anyway. This area is incomplete, but you can kind of see what I'm wanting to do with it. Make little cubbies and everything. It's just for my peoples to live in. Hello, sweetheart. You want to be the... Before I go, let's make her the... She can be the matron of this area. One of these. I think, isn't that how it works if you name them? Let's name her... Gilda Lou. That's a beautiful name. And she is a witch. But she's a good witch. And we don't want her to die. So we're going to reward her being a good witch by forever encasing her in this area. Thank you for your kindness, Mrs. Witch. Enjoy your new tomb. I'll do something a little bit more elegant next episode, but until then, guys, take care and thanks for watching.